And you just saw a little recap of some of the things that happened over the summer with our camps and all kinds of activities, which, by the way, this is just an editorial. Summer was ridiculously short. I would revolt if I was a kid and had to go back to school on July 30th or whatever it was, but that's just me. But we are so glad as a church we had an opportunity to invest in families and kids, and we're going to be talking about that a little bit today, as well as some other things going on in our church. And so welcome. We are glad that you're here, and I got a kind of a little thought experiment for you as we get going today, and it's really pretty simple, and you know the answer. At least one of them is pretty obvious. But as you think about where you are in your life right now, it really comes down to about two things. Now, there's a lot of factors. I understand that. But the reality is there's probably about two things that have influenced where you are, what your life looks like, how happy you are with it. All of those things kind of combined together. There's two factors. One is pretty obvious, right? It's all the decisions that you've made, all the adjustments that you've taken, the choices, the drive that you have, your own internal passion and things that are interesting to you. That explains a lot of where you are. But the other thing, and I think most people would agree, but it's a little less obvious. The other reason you are where you are and the way your life looks is because the people around you, specifically the people that you learn from. Now, some of those times, unfortunately, you learned what not to do. You watch some people, you watch some stuff, and you're like, okay, don't do that. That's not good. That's not who I want to be. That's not what a life wants to look like. But mostly, and hopefully for you, there's several people that were very positive influences, that their wisdom and their teaching and their input really did help form and shape you and help you move forward. I know for me, one of those people his name was Bob Buring. Bob was somebody that helped form my life. When I look back, and I'm sure you've got some pictured in your head too, and your story's probably a little different than mine, but I think there's probably some similarities to your story and my story with Bob. When between 14 and 18 years old, as a teenage boy trying to figure out and becoming a young adult what was going on in my world and my life. And I remember driving around in Bob's VW Beetle, which some of you like, the little Volkswagen, the little, Herbie the Love Bug, the whole thing. We would drive around and we would talk about friends, and we would talk about girls, and we would talk about Jesus, and we would talk about life, and we would talk about parents and all the different things that were going on in my life, because Bob was my youth pastor. And he made those conversations about me. How are you doing? What's going on? Well, how are you going to deal with that? Well, how are you going to respond to that? Well, what do you think you should do? He was constantly kind of helping me, forming me, pouring into me, investing in me. And I look back at Bob as one of those key people that helped me become who I am. He was very important in forming me, not just as a boy, but eventually as a young adult. And I'm sure you have people like that in your life. But there's an interesting study that was done not too long ago, a Harvard study. The professor / researcher's name was Tyler Vanderweel. And they started this survey. This was a long-term deal. It was a little over a decade long. So this was a long-term study. They looked at over 12,000 kids of all different ages and tracked them for over a decade to kind of see what was going on in their life. And they wanted to know, what was it that helped kids flourish and turn out to be great adults? What were kind of the factors? And which is interesting to me, and this is just statistics, okay? Your situation may be completely different, but statistically, one of the things they thought they were going to find was the impact that the educational choices that families made had on the kids. So they kind of went into it, not with a bias, but they were kind of looking to see, okay, what difference does school make? And here's what they found. There was no statistical difference. 12,000 kids over 10 years. There was no statistical difference in the way those kids flourished, whether they went to public school or religious private school. The numbers were the same. There was no meaningful statistical evidence that either one made a difference in how those kids thrived or did not thrive. And I know some of you are already arguing with me in your head. Well, yeah, but wait a minute, they didn't know the school that I went to or the kids that I went to. I get it. I'm just saying, this is the study, right? But they did find something that was very unexpected to them. But for me, I look back and I'm like, well, yeah, of course. They did the study, and one of the things that kind of fell out of it that they weren't expecting, and I want to put it up on the screen for you so you can read it along with me. Kids who regularly went to church, that's the subgroup. Kids that regularly went to church were less likely to fall into substance abuse, depression, and premarital sexual activity. And kids who regularly went to church were more likely to be happy, forgiving, willing to serve with a sense of purpose in life. And they were surprised by this. And I'm over here kind of going, well, yeah. I mean, what do you think? I mean, it's not to say the school doesn't matter, but when you've got people that love other people and pour into them, of course it makes a difference. The key factor for the kids that were flourishing, statistically significant difference, were the ones that regularly went to church. Those kids were thriving. And I know, this isn't a church thing. No matter who you are, everybody thinks investing in the next generation is really, really important. And of course it is. Of course it is. We know in our heads, especially as we get older, we know we should do that because so often people did that for us, but we also just see the value of it. But somewhere between the do, the ought to, and the actual doing of it, we get busy, we don't know, it kind of slides off our radar. Sometimes things get going, we just don't know how, and it's easy to kind of let it pass by. And we're going to read this morning, if you've got a Bible, in Psalm 71, about somebody just like you that was going through life and experiencing the same things you experience. As a matter of fact, at this particular moment that we pick it up in Psalm 71, it's fascinating to me because it doesn't explain why the author is feeling the way they are. But in essence, what they're saying is, I feel like my life is kind of coming apart. I feel very unstable on the inside. It feels like people are ganging up on me, and yet, life is just kind of going along like normal on the outside. And I think all of us can identify with that. We've all felt that. We've all had those moments where things on the inside, not good. Everything on the outside, it looks like life as usual, just per normal, nothing unusual. And he's kind of wrestling through all of this in Psalm 71. And we're going to pick it up in verse 5. And I want you to hear what ends up being the foundation of how this guy's life gets transformed. Verse 5 says this. He's talking to God. He says, "For you have been my hope, sovereign Lord, my confidence since my youth. From birth, I've relied on you. You brought me forth from my mother's womb, and I will ever praise you. I've become a sign to many. You are my strong refuge. My mouth is filled with your praise, declaring your splendor all day long." So he's kind of praising God for what God has done. But then look in verse 9. "Do not cast me away when I'm old. Do not forsake me when my strength is gone." And now he gets to what's going on the inside. "For my enemies speak against me. Those who wait to kill me conspire together. They say, 'God has forsaken him. Pursue him, seize him, for no one will rescue him.' Do not be far from me, my God. Come quickly, God, to help me. May my accusers perish in shame, and may those who want to harm me be covered with scorn and disgrace. But as for me, I will always have hope. I will praise you more and more." It's so fascinating to me. This guy, I don't know how old he is. He's talking about, well, when I get old and when this and that. And you get the feeling he's had a little bit of life under his belt. And you can definitely identify with that sense of the world's not going well and it feels like people are against me and I'm not happy and I don't know what's happening. But he comes back and he says this, "Going backwards gives me hope." Going backwards gives hope. And you're like, wait, what do you mean going backwards? Think about what he did. He went all the way back to what? When he was born. Now, I understand, if you're not a follower of Jesus, this gets a little tricky here. If you are a follower of Jesus, this should just line right up for you. But in essence, what he's saying is, when I look back, when I think about the difficult things that have happened in my life, I think about the ups and downs that everybody has. One of the things I've realized is, God has brought me through all of those. God has gone with me in all of those moments, in all of those situations. And his takeaway from all of that is, that's why I have hope. I don't have hope because of the politics or how much money I have or the economy or because I have a lot of friends or any of those other things. It's not that those are bad. He said, but that's not the source of my hope. The source of my hope is when I look back and see my own personal life history where God has come through so many times. And even in those times that were incredibly difficult and painful, he was with me. I was never by myself. And that is his source of hope. And if you start to think about that in your own world, I don't know everybody's story, but I know mine. And I know those moments where you look back and you think, it was hard being married and it wasn't going smoothly and it was a difficult and stressful and painful time and you stuck and you stayed and now you're so glad you did because God walked you through that. If you're a parent, you can look back and you remember those moments, especially as your kids get older, those moments where you felt angry and upset and terrified and unsure what to do as a parent. And God was with you in that. And all of us have had a job where it just wasn't good. The person we were working for, or the place we were working in, or the people around us, I mean, it was just soul crushing. We hated it, and God was with us in those moments. And many of you are like me. You've had seasons in your life where there's a whole lot more month than there is money, and somehow God provided in those moments. And then there was the time that they hurt you. They turned their back on you. They lied about you. They let you down. They treated you like you never could imagine they would treat you. And God walked through that too with you. And he was a refuge for you. And that's what he's saying. When you look back, when you go backwards, that's where hope comes from. You see that God has carried you through time after time after time after time. And it doesn't make you welcome the difficult. I mean, nobody, unless you're just kind of weird, none of us are like, hey, yeah, bring it on. I'd like some more difficulty. I'd like some more stress and strain in my life. But because you have hope, because he's carried you through so many times, you're not afraid of it. You don't want it, but it's nothing you have to fear. It's nothing that is going to overwhelm you because you have hope, not just for the present, but for the future. Whatever comes, he's taken me through everything. Why would he not take me through the next thing? I mean, we just sang about it. He's a firm foundation that carries us through. So this is where this guy's head's at. My world's not going well. On the outside, everything looks fine. On the inside, it's not. But as I look back, I'm starting to gain some hope. I'm starting to realize and remember, and maybe that's what you needed to hear today, that there is hope for you. And it is in the God who consistently and constantly comes through. But he's not done yet. He picks it up in verse 15. He says, my mouth will tell of your righteous deeds, of your saving acts all day long, though I know not how to relate them all. Just quick pause. In other words, he's saying, I've been blessed so much, I can't even describe it all. It's too much. I can't even stack it up. I can't even describe it all. I can't even explain it all. You've blessed me so much. Verse 16, I will come and proclaim your mighty acts, sovereign Lord. I will proclaim your righteous deeds, yours alone. Since my youth, God, you have taught me. And to this day, I declare your marvelous deeds. Verse 18, even when I'm old and gray, do not forsake me, my God, until I declare your power to the next generation and your mighty acts to all who are to come. Now, he's talking about a transition here, and it's one, unfortunately, that a lot of us miss. We all know transitions, right? You remember, you can look back in your own life. If you've gotten married, there was a time you weren't married, and there was a time that you are married, and that's a transition, right? Going from single to married, that's a transition. There's another transition. When you have kids, and the Barry family just had, 2 days ago, just had one, their first-time parents, which, yes, please, yeah, that's exciting, yeah. They don't know what's coming, but they're ready. You know, they're making a transition of not being parents to praying for a child and being a parent. That's a transition, right? There's age transitions that we make too. When you hit special birthdays and stuff. Like I remember the first time I thought I was an adult. I was like 39 and a half, and I'm like, I guess I'm really an adult now. But 25 seems like a big number. 40 is a big number. 65 is a big number. When we hit those transitions, we realize, okay, life's been one way, and it's going to be different, and that's okay. I'm just transitioning into something else. He talks about a transition. Like I said, it's easy to miss, but it's so important. The transition from blessing to investing, and it shapes the future. When you transition from blessing and being blessed to investing in others, it starts to shape the future. He said in verse 15, I've been blessed so much, I cannot even explain it all. Like, it's too much for me. If I tried to list it, I would run out of paper. If I tried to tell you, I would run out of words how I have been blessed by God. But then he turns around and in verse 18, and he says something so important. I've made the transition. I'm not trying to just keep stacking it up. I'm not trying to hoard it all. I'm not just trying to get more because God has given me so much. I've got to invest it. I've got to invest it in the next generation. I mean, I have hope, so I know that God's going to take care of me. I've been blessed so much so that I can't even explain it all. And so the only obvious, most direct thing I can do is make the transition from somebody who receives to somebody that invests. I've got to turn around and invest this in the next generation. And I know it's easy to think in your mind. It always depends on however old you are. If you're 20, that's for 40-plus-year-old people. If you're 40, that's for people that are retired in their 60s. If you're in your 60s, that's for people that have energy. You know, I mean, we can put it off, right? But that's not what he's saying. I have hope, and I've been blessed. I've got to pour this out on the next generation. It doesn't matter how old I am. That transition is so, so critical. And I'm proud to tell you, there's a transition that we have made as a church. When we talk about the next generation, you're like, well, why do we make such a fuss about the next generation? We want to pour into the next generation. And not just at an idea level. Like, yeah, that's a good idea. Everybody should do that. No. As a church, we have hope because of who we are in Christ. We have been blessed so much so we can't contain it all. And we have no other choice to invest in the next generation. And we do it over and over and over and over. We partner with preschoolers. We partner with elementary age kids. We partner with teenagers. We partner with their parents. And it's not so that we can maintain a tradition or so that the church can get bigger. It's because we've been filled with hope and we've been blessed beyond all measure. We have to do this. And so just some kind of boring facts. There are more paid staff members at this church in our Next Gen ministries than any other ministry that we have. There are more volunteers that serve in our Next Gen ministries than serve in any other ministry that our church has. We have dedicated more square footage of our buildings to Next Gen ministry than any other ministry in our church. Over and over and over, we keep investing in this. Your generosity has allowed us to invest more of our budget in our Next Gen ministry than any other ministry in our church. This is serious for us. We see this as so, so vital. And if you're a parent, we want to partner with you, and we're serious about it. If you're a parent or not a parent, we want to invite you, if you have hope and you've been blessed, to join us in blessing the next generation because there's so many stories. And I hesitate to name people because I know I'm going to forget somebody and I don't want to do that, but I'm going to give you a few names. There's people like Jared Hummel. There's people like Caleb Bramlett. There's people like Ricky and Alondra Gonzalez. There's people like Isabel Gonzalez. There's people like Hannah Mann. There's people like Marissa Freegard that have grown up in this church from young age and in through our teen ministry and are now adults that are serving and leading in our church and other churches in the community. And my prayer is that that would happen 100 times over. That we would have an opportunity to be the church where young kids flourish. Because they're regularly engaged. And the church is so serious about pouring into the next generation. So we have a very simple theme this year. It's called the best year ever. We're inviting our kids and our families and us as a church to engage in the best year ever as we kick off school. And there's a very important part of that phrase, the best year ever with God at the center. That's who we are, and that's what we're doing. In just a moment, Pastor Corey is going to come and share with you, whether you have kids or not, how you can engage in this in a meaningful and powerful way. But I want to wrap up with a very simple story. You might have heard it before. It's an old story. It's about a traveler that's going through a medieval village. And he gets to the village and he sees these huge rock piles. And there's 3 guys working on these rock piles, which doesn't seem like near enough. But he comes up to the first one and he just asks him, he's like, what are you doing? The guy was kind of grumpy and not real happy, and he said, I'm cutting rocks. And he just ignored him. Okay. He goes down the way a little bit. He sees the second pile with the second guy, and he asks him, what are you doing? He goes, I'm a mason. This is how I make my living. Oh, okay. He comes to the third one, and this guy is smiling and whistling and singing, and he's like, wow, this has got a different attitude here. And he comes up and he asks him, he says, what are you doing? He said, I'm building a cathedral that will last for generations. That's exactly what we're doing with Next Gen Ministry. We are building cathedrals that will last for generations. Because as they come to know, love, and follow Jesus, you have no idea how many lives are going to be touched by their life. And I know sometimes, because I've been involved in Next Gen Ministries, I've been a dad, I've done all the things, I get it. Sometimes it feels like we're just changing diapers. We're just getting out another snack. We're just answering the same question. We're just going through the same story. We're just playing another game. We're sitting with a teenager scratching our head like, how could you be that dense? Why would you do that? We're going through all that stuff. And sometimes it's easy to think I'm cutting rocks or I'm making my living. But you're building a cathedral. And that changes everything. Because you are filled with hope. Because you not only have hope for the present, but for the future. Because you have been blessed so much that you've made the transition from, I don't need to stack it up anymore. I need to invest it. That's who we are as a church, and that's what we're going to do, and that's what we're inviting you to be a part of, not just today, but this school year, and I hope that you will. But before we share with you some ways to connect, I want to pray with you, and I want to do something a little bit different. There's an important and powerful prayer in Ephesians chapter 3 that I've taken and tweaked just a little bit that I want to pray over you. So I want to invite you to pray with me, and you might recognize the words because it comes right out of Ephesians 3:14, but let's pray together. Father, you are the source from whom every family in heaven and on earth derives their name. I pray that out of your glorious riches, you would strengthen us with power through your Spirit in our inner being, that Christ may dwell in our hearts and the hearts of our kids and our families through faith. And I pray that since we are rooted and established in your love, that you would give us power, together with all of the Lord's holy people, to grasp how wide and long and high and deep is the love of Christ, to know his love that surpasses all knowledge, that we might be filled to the measure of all of your fullness. Father, to you, the one who is able to do immeasurably more than we ask or imagine, according to your power that is at work within us, to you be the glory in the church and in Christ Jesus through all generations, forever and ever. Amen.